Welcome to the Craig Mostyn Group 15-minute learning series. This course is a time and stress management session 1. Now it's slightly longer than 15 minutes, it runs about 21 minutes, but I'm sure you will appreciate it. The time and stress management course is split into 3 sessions: getting yourself organised, taking control, and then managing stress. So we'll be introducing these one at a time over the next 3 months. So let's start off with getting organised. Now, session 1 is broken down into 4 parts. First of all, organising your stuff, which looks at physical stuff like paperwork and filing and so on, and then looks at electronic stuff as we go along. Then what do you do with it? When do you do it? How do you plan to do something with it? How do you reduce the stuff? We then go on to look at planning and the use of Microsoft Outlook, email and calendar to start planning how to use our electronic information. And finally, we have a look at delegation, urgency and requesting, so that everybody is sure of what they're being asked to do, when they're asked to do it by, and who should be doing it. Now, this one is always controversial, but we believe if you cannot see at least 80% of the top of your desk at all times, you are not working to your full potential. And it's not really only your desk, it's your whole office. If you've got paper on the floor, if your desk is covered in paper, you've got things stuffed in drawers, but you don't know what they are, you've just put them there out of the way. All you tend to do is pick something up, look at it, think, I'm not going to deal with that now, I'll put it down, and you put it down somewhere, you're not quite sure where, and then along comes the next piece of paper or information, report, whatever it might be, and you do the same thing again. Oh, I'll look at that in a minute, put it over somewhere else, and then the next day you pick it up again and you waste another minute or two looking at that just to decide not to do anything to it right now, and I'll put it somewhere else. So organising yourself, organising your paper, your books, your reports and so on properly will make the world of difference to your time. Generally, the reason that you're continuously moving paper from A to B, picking it up, looking at it and so on, is you're scared that if you put it away somewhere, you'll forget all about it. And the reason that is because you haven't got a structure or a methodology for dealing with the items. Doesn't matter whether it's paper or it's electronic. If you've got a structured way of dealing with it, you can get it off your desk and, more importantly, out of your mind until the time comes to do something with it. And so the first methodology is to do it, to plan it and reduce it. You read it once, you make the decision what you're going to do with it, and you deal with it now. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do the action now, but you deal with that piece of paper or report or whatever it is now. So you've planned when you're going to do something with it, or if you're going to give it to somebody else to do it, or you're just going to chuck it away. And so you ask yourself, is this for me? If it isn't, get rid of it. Can I delegate it? Should I be doing this, or is it more suitable for somebody else? If it is, pass it on. Then, yes, it is for me, but is it important? If it is important, you may want to file it. But if it's not, chuck it away. Is it for me, and is it for my action? Well, if you decide yes, it is for your action, then you decide when you're going to do something about it, and you file it in the correct manner so you don't forget. Do you print and keep documents that you've received electronically? Just ask yourself why. Why on earth would you do that? If you need to action or keep a document that you've received electronically, there is absolutely no need to print it. You may wish to print it because you find it easier to work with that way, easier to read, but once you've read it, get rid of it. And then store it in the correct manner in your file store. Or if you want to be reminded of something to do with it at a later date, then save it into an action on your calendar or your task list. Or if it's an email with attachments, you can drag and drop it into your calendar and make that an action to do later. And we'll look at some of those activities in session 2. A major rule under Reduce It is be aware of what you need and be ruthless. The vast majority of everything that you store for reference or for later, you will never look at again. You put it away in your filing cabinet or in a drawer in your desk. And this may be February or March, and you probably have a look at it again next January because you're having a bit of a clean out. Even worse, that will stay there until the day you leave the company and you'll have a clean out and get rid of it then. And you haven't looked at it for many, many, many years. You didn't even know it was there anymore, and yet it's taking up all that space and clutter in your life. Get rid of the clutter. Reduce the stuff that you don't need. Now here's an interesting one. But I would bet that it happens in companies all over the world on a weekly basis. Some time ago, I was working in a major company and I was asked to visit offices and try to understand the bottlenecks in their systems. On one Friday afternoon, I was discussing a large report with a stats clerk, and I asked him how long it took him to produce the report, and he said about 4 hours, about half a day every Friday. And so I said to him, well, how often have you been doing this report? He said, well, I've been doing it for a few years now. I was asked for it by an area manager a couple of years ago, one Friday, and I gave him the report. And I've done it every Friday ever since, just in case he asked for it again. And you know what? He never did. But this person had spent half a day a week producing this report and filing it. An incredible waste inbuilt into the systems of that office now, because it's been happening for so long. Hardly anybody even knew why they were doing it. They just did it. Now, I regularly ask people if they receive information either on paper or via email or electronically in some other form, if they receive information that they don't actually want. So they get it, look at it, throw it away. They may even read it, wasting even more time. Now, what I believe would reduce this dramatically if we had a plan for the entire company, that every time you received a piece of information that you don't need, that you wrote on it with a large red pen, or if it's an email in large red letters, saying, I no longer need to receive this information, and send it back to the person it came from. And hopefully, within a very short time, this enormous amount of unwanted spreading of information around the company would disappear. So now we've got to the point where we're actually dealing with paper or files that we actually should have and should be doing something with. So how do we remember what you've got to action? Well, a reasonable way of organising your paper files would be to have drawers or trays or something that you could format into the following sections. Action I've got to do today, action for tomorrow, this week, next month, or later on. And as you do each one, you move the others along. And that way, you've got that completely out of your mind. You're not thinking to yourself all the time, oh, I've got to remember to do that tomorrow or next week. You've got it planned and structured in front of you in a very organized manner. And now we're moving to looking at planning and the use of Microsoft Outlook or any email system really. With emails you receive, do you print them and keep the email? And again, if so, ask yourself why. Similar to what we talked about earlier with electronic reports, there may be occasions where you want to print an email to take it into a meeting or something like that and discuss it, but then throw it away. You need to be creating a proper filing system within your email or within your file structures in your folders to deal with email, and never print it and store it in a box or a box folder or something like that. Keep it electronically. You can search it and sort it electronically. You can find it really quickly, and it is backed up and saved. You're never going to lose it. Now, email is clearly a two-way thing. You send email and you receive email. And quite a bit of the email you receive is probably rubbish. Now, the modern systems deal with a lot of the spam and the hundreds of thousands of emails that are floating around each day that are clearly not wanted. But you do get some of the spam through. But how do we deal with that email rubbish? How do we stop getting it? And most of all, how do we stop sending it to somebody else? I think one of the big ones is sending email to all. So you've got no idea whether people want this email, but you send it to everybody because it's easier that way. So maybe 200 or 300 people receive your email. Now it could be relevant to 3 or 4 of them. But what if they reply to all instead of just replying to you? Then you're generating hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails that nobody else wants. So think very carefully about sending an email to all, and most of all, think extremely carefully about replying to an email and not replying to everybody, where clearly most of the people won't be interested. Similarly with CCing people, really ask yourself, why am I CCing somebody? Is there a good reason for that? And the best thing to do within any email is be specific. So for the people that you've sent it to, tell them why they've got it. And if you want them to do something, say what you want them to do and when. And if the email has gone to 6 people in the to box, then be specific to each one of them who's got to do what. Otherwise, you may get 6 people doing one job, or you may get no people doing the job. So be specific. What do you want and when do you want it? If you've CC'd someone, give them an idea why. I've CC'd you in for this for your information, but you don't need to do anything. That way you can easily deal with the rubbish, the information, and really have got something to do. Similar to what we talked about on paper, but doing the same things with your email. And so we've got rid of the emails we don't want. And now we need to take control of the emails that we do want. And again, similar to the paper system, we either do it now or we plan it now. So we do it now if it will only take a short time. If it would only take a minute or so to deal with that email, let's do it now and get it out of the way. Because it may be a minute or a 30-second job to do something about it. If we go into the plan it mode and everything else, it may be a 5-minute job because we've got to plan it and look at it again later on and so on. So if it's very short action, just do it and get rid of it. Otherwise, we get into the plan it now. And that will be, when am I going to do it? I'm going to electronically flag it for later. I'm going to flag it in my calendar that I've got something to do with it, or in my tasks. But I'm going to get rid of it so it's not stuck in my mind. It's not playing on my mind again. I've got to remember to do this. Just ensure that it's flagged electronically or calendared or tasked so it will come up at the correct time. Now, we said about being specific. If you want somebody to do something, say what and when. And that's the same when you receive an email. If it asks you to do something, first of all, if it's not clear, you need to clarify what that means. And if it hasn't got any time scale against it, you need to ask the person what their expectations are. Because unless you know clearly what you have to do and when it's required by, it's impossible for you to plan. You might decide, oh, I'm going to do that in a month's time, but the person was expecting it tomorrow. So always clarify these things, and then there's no disappointment either way. We will spend some more time on Outlook in session 2, but here are some hints and tips to go with what we've just been discussing about how to ensure we don't forget some important actions when an email comes in. And so, pretty standard view of an Outlook screen, and we get an email in. Here's one from the Abbey Beach Resort, and I think, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I might have a look at that next week. So I can right click on that, drag it down my screen to where it says calendar, let go, and I can say copy here as an appointment with just text, with a shortcut to the email, or as an attachment. And I think as an attachment is usually a good option, unless it's a very simple one. And I'll show you why. Copy here as an attachment, and it will keep the entire email here. And I've got the subject ready to go in my calendar. I'm going to look at it on Monday the 21st, and I think I'll make sure I do it relatively early in the day, maybe lunchtime. I'm going to check that one out. And then when I want to open it, I can just double click on that envelope there, and it will open that email for me. Save and close. Go into my calendar, look at the 21st, and you can see there's the lunch for Easter and April school holidays. Put it in the calendar where I want it to be. Let's go back to the mail again. We can do a similar thing if I wanted to put that as a task instead of a calendar appointment. I can drag it to tasks, get a similar set of options, provided it's a right click. Copy here as an attachment. There it goes into my task. The difference is task, I can say a start date. I'm going to start working on it on Monday the 21st, but I intend to finish by Friday, and I want a reminder, and I want the reminder on Monday the 21st at 8 o'clock, and I can save that, and it goes into my tasks. Very simple way of storing actions that you have to do with emails. But the most important thing is it is no longer have to be in your mind. It doesn't need to be stuck there for you trying to remember what I've got to do next week. As soon as we get into the further sessions and talk about time management and stress management, it will become really clear why it's important to empty your mind of these actions to do. And finally, I just want to reiterate how important it is that you understand that when you receive an email, what you're being asked for, what the sender's expectations are, and what they wish you to do. Just need to cover that one again. This is really important because you may well be going off doing things that you don't have to do. You can save an awful lot of time by asking, what are your expectations? What would you like me to do and when? And one other important thing, do not be afraid to say no. There's a finite amount of time. There's only 24 hours in a day. We've all got a lot to do. So 9 times out of 10, if we urgently have to do one thing, then something else will have to wait. So then you need to be able to plan priorities. If someone's asked you to do 6 things for them, have that discussion about priorities. Which one's the most important? When does it need to be done? Which one's the second most important? When does it need to be done? And so on. And you get all the expectations right. Then you get your deliverable, you do it on time, and everybody's happy. So that's the end of session 1 on time and stress management. Session 2 will come next month and session 3 the month after that. They'll all be published on the website portal, and each one will have some follow-up documentation that you can download. And please complete the questionnaire so we can gauge whether the information is making sense to you and give you the option of providing further information to us on this course or any others that you may like. Thank you.